Tomorrow, I finally become an adult, at least by US law, and I will be moving into my girlfriend's uncle's guest house for the remainder of my senior year of high school before college. My hope is to never talk to my family again. Why, you ask? The reason for this move really begins at my conception. My biological dad left my mom as soon as she found out she was pregnant. She had me and became a single mom right away. When I was 2, she met Ted, and they moved in together. Ted had a son named Mark, who was also 2. This is where the second issue arose. Mark's biological mom had passed away, but mine was still around. My mom adopted Mark right after marrying Ted, but Ted never adopted me. Instead, they decided to make my biological dad pay child support. They also had my half-sister a year later, so everyone in the family had Ted's last name, except me. I carried my mom's maiden name. You may notice I call my mom's husband Ted instead of Dad. That wasn't always the case. I called him Dad for most of my life because he was the only father figure I ever knew. But there were always small things that made me feel like I wasn't treated the same as a regular son. When we attended family events, my mom would refer to both Mark and me as her sons, but Ted would always correct her, saying that I was his adopted son, while Mark was his real son. Mark and my half-sister Grace would get special one-on-one time with Ted, but I never did. This difference became more obvious as we grew up. I don't want to sound arrogant, but I've always done better in school than Mark. While he struggled to get B's in his classes, I earned A's in honors and AP courses with little effort. School came easy to me, and my report cards showed it. As time passed, Ted began to resent this. I was too young to notice at first, but now it's clear. Whenever report cards came out, Ted would praise Mark and Grace, but my achievements were met with jokes about how I didn't even need to try. Any compliment Ted gave me always had a joke attached. At one point, Ted wanted to limit the money I received for getting A's compared to what Mark got for B's, but my mom stopped him. However, she never stopped the extra bonding time Ted and Mark had, which always led to Mark getting larger gifts than I did. As we got older, Ted spent more time with Mark and Grace and less with me. My mom didn't have special bonding moments with me either. She preferred spending time with all of us as a family. When I was 15, Mark and Ted were planning a camping trip. By that time, I knew I was being treated differently and wanted to understand why. I had been asking to join them, but it never happened. Finally, on the day of the trip, I got upset and told Ted it wasn't fair that I couldn't go. Ted took me aside and said that while he cared for me, it wasn't the same. He explained that he needed time to bond with his biological children away from the rest of the family and suggested that I ask my mom for some one-on-one time. I don't know what I expected, but hearing those words shattered me. After they left for the trip, I talked to my mom about what Ted had said. Unfortunately, things only got worse. My mom knew how Ted treated me and acknowledged it, but she said she made sure I was treated fairly financially. She also told me that Ted had been almost a father figure and that I should be grateful for what he had done. I was heartbroken. When Ted returned from the trip, I stopped calling him Dad. In my family's eyes, that's when the problem started. But for me, it was the result of everything that had been happening for years. My mom begged me to be more understanding, but I couldn't. For the next 4 months, I called him Ted. Then, around Christmas, when I was 16, I came home from work to find the entire family waiting for me in the living room. It was strange. They called it an intervention and took turns explaining how calling Ted by his first name hurt them. Ted said it pained him, and he had always tried to be a good father figure. My mom talked about everything he had done for me. Mark said I was ungrateful, and Grace, crying, said she wanted her family back and that I was ruining everything. That moment hurt me the most because I loved Grace, and she had always recognized that Ted treated me differently. Losing her would mean losing everyone. They let me speak, and I told them how Ted treated me differently, how I was the only one in the family with a different last name, and how I felt like an outsider. I started crying, but no one came to comfort me. Ted then said, "See, this change is tearing you apart. You don't have to feel like an outsider. Come back to the family." Even my mom and Grace nodded in agreement. I was stunned. It didn't happen right away, but slowly I started calling him Dad again, just to keep the peace. But it never felt right, and I never truly forgave them. I had been feeling lost and sad for a long time. One day I was venting to a coworker named Jenny about how unfair Ted was to me. She suggested that I start saving money to move out once I turned 18. It was a great idea, so I began working and saving, preparing for the day when I could finally leave. Jenny and I started dating, and instead of moving into an apartment, I'm moving into her uncle's guest house. He was looking for a tenant, and I was able to pay him 10 months' rent up front. That will get me through the rest of the school year before college. I've been moving my things out little by little, without my family noticing. Tomorrow, while they're at church, I'll take the last of my things, including my bed. I'll also leave a letter for my mom, explaining that while I hope to forgive her in time, right now, I'm too hurt and angry. I know that leaving means I'll lose any financial support, but honestly, if Jenny hadn't suggested I move out, I don't know where I'd be right now. I was in a dark place, but her support and encouragement helped me find a way out. I don't know if we'll stay together after high school, as I'm going away for college and she's staying local. But no matter what happens, I'll always be grateful to her for helping me through this difficult time. I'll try to update after the move is complete. Wish me luck.